Over 40? 10 mistakes that are completely wrecking your workouts. If you are over 40 and training hard but not seeing the results you expected, you can bet that one or more mistakes from this list are sabotaging all your effort. Today, I'm going to show you the 10 mistakes that destroy results for people in this age group, and most importantly, how to fix each one of them right now. Before we get started, please leave a comment with your name and the city you are watching from. We would love to know. Mistake number 1, ignoring gut health and nutrient absorption. You might be eating the most well-planned diet in the world, with protein, carbohydrates, and fat timed perfectly. But if your gut is not functioning properly, a good part of that effort goes straight down the drain. After 40, this problem becomes far more common than most people realize. When there is an imbalance in the gut microbiome, a condition also known as dysbiosis, the body's ability to absorb amino acids, vitamins, and minerals drops dramatically. You consume the nutrients, but your body cannot use them efficiently for recovery and muscle hypertrophy. And since at this stage there is already a condition called anabolic resistance, which we will cover shortly, any additional problem with absorption makes that difficulty even worse. Regular gym goers who corrected gut issues report significant improvements in recovery, energy levels, and strength gains after just a few months of caring for their microbiome. What can you do in practice? Include fermented foods in your routine. Natural yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi are rich sources of probiotics that strengthen the gut flora. Increase your intake of prebiotic fiber found in garlic, onions, green bananas, and oats. And reduce your consumption of ultra-processed foods and alcohol, which seriously compromise the balance of the microbiome. An important warning sign: frequent bloating, excessive gas, constipation, or alternating between diarrhea and constipation are clear signs that your gut health needs attention. In that case, guidance from a specialized nutritionist can make an enormous difference in your results. Mistake number 2, underestimating anabolic resistance. This is one of the most silent and most devastating mistakes for people who train after 40. Anabolic resistance is a real, scientifically documented condition in which muscle tissue becomes progressively less sensitive to the stimulus of protein and training itself to initiate the process of protein synthesis. In other words, a 20-year-old can build muscle with less protein and less structure. After 40, the body demands much more to deliver the same result. Continuing to train and eat as if you were 25 is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. A study published in the Journal of Physiology showed that older men need higher doses of leucine, the most anabolic of the essential amino acids, to trigger the same protein synthesis response that younger men achieve with smaller amounts. This means that simply consuming protein is not enough. The quality and dose per meal matter much more from this stage of life onward. What changes in practice? You need to distribute between 35 and 50 grams of high biological value protein in each main meal, prioritizing leucine-rich sources such as chicken, eggs, fish, lean beef, and whey protein. Simply splitting your protein goal across 5 or 6 meals of 20 grams each will not work the same way it would for someone younger. Beyond nutrition, training needs to be smarter. Sets performed with good technique and close to muscular failure generate a much stronger signal for protein synthesis than sets done with low weight and insufficient effort. Recognizing that your body has changed is not weakness. It is the foundation for building a strategy that actually works. Mistake number 3, training but spending long periods of the rest of the day sitting. This mistake is going to bother a lot of people, but it needs to be said. 1 hour of training represents less than 5% of the hours you are awake in a day. What you do in the other 19 hours matters a great deal, perhaps even more than the workout itself. Studies in exercise medicine have shown that sitting for more than 8 hours a day is associated with increased inflammatory markers, reduced insulin sensitivity, and impaired peripheral circulation. and these factors directly affect muscle recovery and hormonal balance. Can you imagine the impact of that on your daily training? There is a concept called NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity, thermogenesis. It is every calorie you burn throughout the day simply by moving, standing up, walking, climbing stairs, gesturing. Sedentary people outside the gym can have a NEAT level up to 2,000 calories per day, lower than people who are active throughout their daily routine. That is enormous. The solution does not require a revolution in your routine. Every 45 to 60 minutes of sitting, get up for 3 to 5 minutes. Take a light walk, stretch, climb a flight of stairs. If you work from home, use part of your breaks for 10 minutes of light walking. Some research shows that these micro-activities improve metabolic markers in a way comparable to continuous moderate intensity exercise. Continuous movement throughout the day keeps your metabolism active, promotes blood circulation, reduces chronic inflammation, and creates a more favorable hormonal environment for muscle growth. Training hard for 1 hour and then staying still for the rest of the day is almost like building on an unstable foundation. Mistake number 4, ignoring the morning anabolic window and the morning cortisol peak. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and its reputation in the fitness community is quite negative. But what many people do not know is that the natural morning cortisol peak, which occurs between 6 and 8 in the morning, plays an important role in metabolism and in preparing the body for the day ahead. The problem arises when this window is ignored. Waking up, skipping breakfast, having only a coffee, and going straight to work or to training in a prolonged fast without any strategy means that elevated cortisol will act on muscle tissue without the anabolic counterbalance of insulin and amino acids. The result is catabolism, meaning the breakdown of muscle tissue to generate energy. After 40, this effect is amplified by the natural decline in testosterone and insulin-like growth factor 1 levels. A young body has much more margin to absorb this mistake without visible consequences. A more mature body does not. The solution is relatively simple. Within 1 hour of waking up, consume a meal with at least 30 grams of fast-digesting protein and a moderate portion of low-glycemic carbohydrate. This activates protein synthesis at the moment when the body is most receptive to it, controls elevated cortisol, and prepares the body for a more anabolic day. If you train in the morning, this meal can be eaten before or right after your workout, depending on your tolerance. What you cannot do is completely ignore this window of opportunity that opens every single day and that most people waste simply because of a lack of information. Mistake number 5, excessive training volume. More is not more, especially after 40. This is one of the most common mistakes among people who have been dedicated to training for a long time and associate effort with results. The mindset of, the more sets I do, the greater my gains will be, may have worked in youth. After 40, it literally works against you. Muscle recovery capacity decreases with age. This happens due to a combination of factors: hormonal decline, reduced baseline protein synthesis, greater systemic inflammation, and frequently more fragmented sleep. If training volume exceeds the body's recovery capacity, the result is not more growth. It is overtraining, stagnation, and injury. Exercise science indicates that for most people over 40 with an intermediate training level, between 10 and 16 weekly sets per muscle group represents the optimal range. Beyond that, without adequate recovery, marginal returns drop and risks increase. What to do in practice? Monitor your recovery signals. If you are arriving at your workout with muscles still sore from the previous session, if your strength on main exercises is declining over the weeks, if you frequently wake up more tired than when you went to sleep, these are clear signs that your volume is exceeding your recovery capacity. Reducing volume and increasing the intensity of the sets you keep is often far more effective than adding more and more sets to an already overloaded routine. Quality beats quantity. always. Before we continue, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will help you progress with health over the long term in the world of exercise. Mistake number 6, not getting regular blood work done. This mistake goes far beyond the gym, but its impact inside the gym is devastating. Training with unidentified nutritional deficiencies or hormonal imbalances is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You put in the effort, you invest the energy, but the results do not show up because there is an invisible problem sabotaging everything. After 40, certain variables become especially important to monitor. Total and free testosterone levels directly affect your capacity for muscle gain, libido, energy, and mood. Vitamin D, deficiency of which is extremely prevalent, influences the immune system, bone health, and even testosterone production. Iron and ferritin impact oxygen transports and the energy available for training. The thyroid regulates overall metabolism. I have observed that a significant portion of gym goers who complain about plateaus, excessive fatigue, or difficulty recovering have at least one of these variables outside the ideal range when they get tested. But the data becomes even more striking when you realize that many of them had never had a complete blood panel done in the past 2 or 3 years. The recommendation is to get a full checkup at least once a year, including a complete blood count, hormonal profile, vitamins, inflammatory markers such as C-reactive protein, blood glucose, and lipid panel. With that data in hand, you and your doctor can identify areas for improvement that no training protocol or diet alone can resolve. Information is power, and in the context of training after 40, regular blood work is one of the most powerful tools available to optimize results safely. Mistake number 7, not taking rest periods and deload weeks. There is a deeply rooted belief in fitness culture that stopping means losing, that every week without intense training is a wasted week. And that belief, carried uncritically past the age of 40, comes at a very high cost in the form of injuries, chronic fatigue, and stagnation. A deload is a planned period, usually 1 week, during which training volume and intensity are deliberately reduced to allow the central nervous system, joints, tendons, and ligaments to recover completely. It is not laziness. It is strategy. Unlike muscle, which has a relatively well-mapped recovery rate, structures such as tendons and ligaments have much lower blood supply and recover far more slowly. When you train intensely for weeks on end without a deload period, the accumulation of microstress in these structures progressively increases the risk of overuse injuries. This is one of the main mechanisms behind tendinitis, bursitis, and injuries to the shoulder, knee, and elbow, which are so common among older athletes. The most common recommendation in the literature is to perform a deload every 6 to 8 weeks of intense training. During this period, you can maintain your training frequency, but reduce total volume by around 40 to 50%, and load by approximately 20%. The goal is not to exhaust yourself. It is to recover actively and come back stronger the following week. Athletes who adopt systematic deloads report more consistent progress over the long term, lower incidence of joint pain, and significantly better sleep quality during the deload week. Planning to rest is just as important as planning to train. Mistake number 8, training your ego by trying to lift more weight than you can handle. This one is a classic, and let whoever has never done it cast the first weight plate. The problem is that after 40, the price you pay for this mistake is far higher than it was in your youth. A shoulder or knee injury that would have resolved in a few weeks at 25 can become a chronic problem lasting months at 45. What makes this mistake particularly dangerous is that it does not happen from lack of effort, but from an excess of it. The person wants to evolve, wants to progress, wants to feel like they are going beyond their own limits. The impulse is positive, the execution is misguided. When you use a load beyond your actual control capacity, your body immediately recruits secondary muscles and postural compensations to complete the movement. The joint that should be stabilized by the surrounding muscles becomes exposed. The eccentric phase of the movement, which represents between 40 and 50% of the hypertrophy potential, is completely thrown away because the only goal in that moment is to survive the weight. Progressive overload, which is the fundamental principle of strength training, does not mean only increasing weight. It also means increasing reps, increasing sets, reducing rest intervals between sets, or increasing time under tension. There are 5 different ways to progress before you need to add more weight. Use all of them before going heavier. A simple test. If you cannot perform all your planned reps with control during the lowering phase, without holding your breath, and without needing compensatory movements, the load is higher than it should be. Reduce it, master the movement, and then advance. Your body will thank you, and so will your results. Mistake number 9, neglecting mobility and stretching. There is a window of opportunity that silently opens and closes after 40, the maintenance of range of motion. Those who do not actively work to preserve and expand that range will notice, in the years that follow, a series of limitations that affect both quality of life and training performance. But what does this have to do with your results? Everything. A muscle that cannot contract through its full range of motion is not capable of generating maximum tension. A squat with limited ankle mobility will overload the knee and the lower back. A bench press with compromised shoulder mobility will limit pectoral recruitment and increase the risk of rotator cuff injuries. After 40, connective tissue such as fascia, ligaments, and joint capsules progressively loses elasticity. This process is natural, but it can be significantly slowed down with consistent mobility and stretching work. The difference between those who take care of this area and those who ignore it becomes evident within just a few years. The practical recommendation is to dedicate between 10 and 15 minutes before training to dynamic joint mobility exercises, movements that prepare the joints for what is to come. After training, include 5 to 10 minutes of static stretching on the muscle groups that were worked. Outside the gym, set aside at least 2 weekly sessions of 20 minutes for specific mobility work, focusing on the most restricted areas of your body. The hips, shoulders, and thoracic spine are frequently the most compromised regions in people who spend many hours sitting and do not work on mobility. Small gains in these areas often translate into immediate improvements in the quality of execution of your main exercises. Mistake number 10, not drinking enough water during training. The last mistake on this list may seem too simple, but the frequency with which it appears and the impact it causes justify its place here. Hydration during training is a variable that most people underestimate, especially after 40. The thirst mechanism begins to become less efficient with aging. This means that after 40, you can be significantly dehydrated before you even feel thirsty. And a dehydration level of just 2% of body weight is already enough to reduce muscular strength by up to 6% and aerobic performance by up to 10%, according to consolidated data in the sports science literature. Muscle is composed of approximately 75% water. Protein synthesis, nutrient transport into the muscle cell, and the removal of metabolic byproducts all depend on adequate hydration. The joints, lubricated by synovial fluid, also suffer from a lack of water, increasing friction and wear over time. Training dehydrated means compromising all of this at the same time. The practical guidance is to arrive at your workout already hydrated. Drink around 17 ounces of water in the 2 hours before exercise. During training, consume between 5 and 8 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes without waiting until you feel thirsty. A useful monitoring tip: light yellow urine indicates good hydration. Dark yellow is a sign that you need to drink more. For those who train in hot environments or at high intensity, electrolyte replacement such as sodium and potassium should also be considered during longer sessions. Do not let this detail sabotage everything you build with so much effort in the gym. If you made it this far, you now have a clear map of the mistakes that may be holding back your results. More important than identifying the mistakes is taking action. Choose 1 or 2 points from this list that you recognize in yourself and start correcting them this week. Small changes made consistently generate transformative results over time. If you enjoyed this and also want to discover the 10 exercises that men over 40 should avoid to minimize as much as possible the risk of injuries or even surgeries, we have a video appearing on screen right now showing each one of them in detail. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and God bless you, my friend.